Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rihanna, and welcome back to Fresh Off the Broke.
Fresh Off the Broke is about personal experiences growing up Asian American in a predominantly white community, Asian media, and Asian pop culture in general. Race has always been a sensitive topic. Every day there's debates over race. With the podcast, we intend to shed light on the experiences of first-generation Asian immigrants, not put them on a pedestal.
We understand that race isn't everything, but there should be an acknowledgement of people of color, the knowledge gap, and the racial divide that will ideally be broken. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Today we will be discussing trophy children.
Right. And so, with the spirit of Asian Pacific Heritage Month, last episode we were kind of gushing on different Asian cultures, things we're proud of from our cultures. And this episode is a little bit more on the serious side, and it's still related to Asian cultures, but more so kind of like an analysis or a reflection on something that is, like I said, more serious and is something that is important to talk about. And so, trophy children, if you're, you can kind of catch what it means from the name, but it's that essentially parents kind of putting their children on a pedestal, not on a pedestal in the sense that like, oh, I love my kids so much, they're on a pedestal. It's more so they're putting them on a pedestal in the sense that they see their child as like obviously a trophy, and then they kind of get a feeling of accomplishment from their child's accomplishment, and it's kind of like an extension to them and fulfilling certain dreams that they might have had that they couldn't achieve when they were younger, or things that they couldn't have done because of the time period they grew up in or the place they grew up in, etc., etc. And this concept and dynamic is pretty popular amongst Asian parents and Asian families because, everyone's familiar with the whole thing about Asian parents and Asian relatives comparing people, right? And a lot of that feeds into trophy children. And so we wanted to talk about it today because it is a big part of growing up Asian, especially Asian, like a hyphenated Asian that is outside of the quote-unquote motherland.
I think it's also important to note that if you're unfamiliar with the idea of trophy children or a trophy child, a main characteristic to this is that like dehumanizing aspect. It's not that you're looking at your child and being like, I'm so proud of my child for their achievements, or like looking at your child and acknowledging your child as a child. It's very like, this is my little thing that I have that has achieved all these things and it makes me look good. It has nothing to do with like the bond between like, this is my kid. It's very dehumanizing.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah. And like I was saying, if they don't put their child on a pedestal in like a loving way, not that I guess. When people talk about putting something on a pedestal, kind of how in our intro we're always like, we're not trying to put Asian immigrants on a pedestal. We mean that in a way of making them more important than others. And so under the concept of a trophy child, they're putting them on a pedestal in the way that you put a trophy on a pedestal, like that you almost see your child as an object or as some type of robot or
just something to make you look good.
Tool, yeah,
accessory.
Like a tool to make you look better. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with
that I want to use,
familial
like a vessel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No familial bonds, and that's important in this sense.
And one last thing to add: it has been noted that trophy, like the concept of a trophy child, is usually enforced by mothers, but obviously it can be enabled and started by any guardian.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably ties back to the whole tiger parenting. I mean, all these things are very much interrelated.
Yeah. Oh, and also to know, like, this isn't specific to Asian parents. I think it's just highlighted, especially in just immigrant parents.
Mm-hmm.
Think like American Dream, moving to a new country so your child can have better opportunities. That
Mm-hmm.
gets morphed into, I did all of this for you. You have to make me look good now, and I have to live through you, or you're going to do the things that I wanted to do but couldn't because I moved for better
Yeah, yeah,
opportunities.
yeah, yeah. And the reason why, I mean, and this is true with all of our episodes, the reason why we always say Asian or we tie it back to Asian families and the Asian experience or immigrant experience or child of immigrant experience, it's because that is kind of the focus of our podcast. And so
Uh-huh.
we relate it or find ways that it does originate from or ties to being Asian in whatever capacity.
Uh-huh.
And so, like Rihanna said, trophy children can be children of any background.
Mm-hmm.
We're just highlighting how it presents itself in Asian kids.
Mm-hmm. I doubt anyone is thinking this, but in case you are thinking, like, hey, that doesn't sound so bad. Like, my parent is not necessarily proud of me, but is proud of my achievements. That may be good for me. Or like, I don't really see the downside. A parent being proud is a parent being proud regardless, you know. Um, but there is a lot of difficulty for the trophy child itself or themselves. There's a lot of pressure and stress,
Mm-hmm.
as you can imagine, being put onto the child because they have to meet this expectation. And if they don't, then they're essentially worthless to their parent, their own parent. And you can imagine that's incredibly bad for mental health, for your mental health, you know?
Of course.
And even like as a parent, it's incredibly unhealthy to live vicariously through your own child. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are your own person. Just because you have a child does not mean that your life stops. And that's very difficult topic that honestly could be its own episode. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it really is not healthy to live through your own child.
Mm-hmm.
Not good.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the whole trophy child thing and why we were tying it to tiger parenting is because parents that follow the trophy child mindset, they might, I don't know, enroll their kids in all these classes and then make them do all these things and gain all these skills so that they can go on to achieve whatever it is that they want them to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of having a trophy child and wanting a trophy child is you have some predetermined goal, like an end goal
Uh-huh.
that you want. Say you want your kid to be a lawyer, and so maybe you try to make them go to debate camp or things like that.
Uh-huh.
Just there's a plan. There's
Yeah.
a lot of orchestration, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like Rihanna said, a lot of pressure because I mean you're just a kid. And I mean, even when you're past being a kid and you're a teenager or whatever, you're still developing.
Mm-hmm.
And to have everything be determined from maybe even before you were born or right as you were born or whatever
Uh-huh.
is a lot because you you might think that you can subliminally have these things somehow like suggested to your child and then because you made them do the debate and whatever that they will turn out to be a law student. And sometimes it works. It has worked. We've seen it work where parents, they want their kid to be a doctor, and then their kid becomes a doctor. And there are also instances where they, I don't want to say fail because it's not a failure, but where their plan doesn't work out and their kid can't handle, I don't know, med school or whatever, or they're just not, they're not passionate about it. They don't actually want to be a doctor. And I mean, studying medicine is really hard. And if you don't have care for it, then it's really hard to push through and study or memorize things, and you don't become a doctor. You might drop out of your medical program, blah blah, and that path that they set up for you, that they wanted you to take, it doesn't work because it was never what you wanted in the first place. I mean, think about the stereotypical movie scene. It's not my dream, Dad. It's yours.
Yeah.
Things like that, or it's not my dream, Mom, or whoever. It's your dream. I'm thinking of, I don't know why, but I'm thinking of sports right now because I think that just I'm thinking of High School Musical.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the go-to example, but that's what I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah. But like it's true though, because imagine as a kid being forced to do something you don't like. Like your likes, your dislikes just being completely disregarded for the sake of your own parent. Like again, very dehumanizing. You don't feel like what you say matters.
Yeah, it's always hard sometimes when I hear discussions about this topic because sometimes there is the argument that you should be grateful that, I don't know, you were put in piano or math because now you're really good at math. And that is not necessarily wrong. And there is also a need to acknowledge that, yes, the parent may have worked really hard to earn money to put the kid in said classes. That is something to acknowledge because being an immigrant parent is hard. And finding a job and making a life in a foreign country is not an easy thing to do. And they want the best for their child. Intent does not always match impact, and it also doesn't always. I don't know how the rest of that goes. Do you know how it goes? It's something about intent. I mean, it's not a saying, but I've heard someone say this before. It's just something about how intent doesn't always trump impact. It's just because you want the best. Because I mean, the statement, "I just want what's best for you," can be a painful one because that can also come from manipulative parents, emotionally abusive parents, mentally abusive parents, physically abusive parents. The like. I will not list them all. I also don't know if I know the entire list. But you get my point.
Yeah. Even like the argument of, the parents spent all this money working hard to put these kids into these classes. Like, it's true, yes, and I acknowledge that. But at the same time, like, if your kid doesn't like what they're doing, why are you spending all this money? Like, it's it's very dumb to me.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize. Sorry. I actually just thought of something now. There's a K-drama, I haven't actually watched it, but I think it's called Bad Mother or Bad Mom, something
Mm.
like that, and it's about I think you could say that it ties to trophy child, tiger parenting, because what happens is this mother, she physically, emotionally, and mentally abuses her son because she wants him to get the best grades and whatever, and
Mm.
she will not let him eat
Mm.
until he finishes what I think it's like he's not allowed to eat when he's studying, or he's not allowed to eat until he's done studying or something like that. Because if he, I don't know, has rice, then there's gonna be sugar, and then he's gonna get sleepy, and then he's not gonna
Mm.
work as hard and whatever. And the lasting trauma that was left on the son impacted him for the rest of his life. And because the thing is, I'm speaking through clips that I've seen and reading that I have done on
Mhm.
the synopsis and stuff.
Mhm.
Because I mean, yes, there is a bit of background because there was the loss of their father, and that was kind of used as an excuse for her behavior. But at the end of the day, she deeply traumatized and damaged her son, and it was a little frustrating at times when I would see in comment section with and whatever, where some people that you could tell maybe they never experienced having parents like that, saying
Mm.
how they don't see the big deal. And then there are people that maybe grew up like that, but then they were able, like them and their parents were able to reconcile their relationship, which I'm very
Mm.
happy for them
Mhm.
that they could do that. Not everyone can do that. And it was a tough the clips were hard to watch. I don't know if I will watch the drama. I think I would like to, but I also don't know if I really want to.
Yeah.
There's just because I don't really want to be reminded of things.
Yeah, very triggering.
Yeah. And then there's spoiler alert. He gets her to sign these papers to give him up for adoption. This is when he's way older. Uh he had this whole plan to get married to this rich yeah, this girl that came from a rich family, and then they were gonna like adopt him in a way,
Mm.
and then the complicated thing is that he ended up in a car accident, and
Oh
then
God.
he was in like a coma, and his mom. Because the thing is, he went back to the village, and wanted her to sign the adoption papers, blah blah blah.
Mm.
And then I got in that car accident on their way out of the village, and then he was in a
No.
coma, blah blah. And then his mom takes care of him, and then there's like this whole thing. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that ending or
Yeah.
that series of events, just because I'm not against forgiveness. People
Uh-huh.
can change,
Uh-huh.
people can grow,
Uh-huh.
you can forgive. That happened. I am also of the belief that you don't have to forgive everyone or everything.
Mhm.
It is, I just don't think it's always the quote unquote bigger person thing to do.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
not all things are forgivable, right?
For sure.
You can quote unquote move on in a way and maybe move past it and build a better relationship, but some things are just not forgivable.
Yeah, like you can't take back what you've done.
Yeah.
Therefore,
And I just don't think everyone has to forgive everyone. And it's
yeah.
just, I mean, it's really annoying sometimes how people say that because someone is family that you have to
Have
forgive them
to.
no matter what. And
Mhm.
that's not super healthy because sometimes, because not everyone is capable of change. And
Uh-huh.
then some people are just that damaging that you just can't be with them.
Yeah. And that's perfectly fine.
No contact exists. It's an option, and some people do it.
Yeah, and in some
And
cases, it's the
it
best option.
it helps them a lot. And in case you don't know what no contact is, it's essentially, I mean, I kind of, maybe you can get it from the name, but it's completely cutting someone off, just going full no contact. It could be with someone that you were previously friends with. It could be your parents. It's like someone in your family, someone that you were romantically involved with, etc., etc. But it's an extreme decision that people make in order to
Heal.
heal and also rid their life of this person or people.
Yeah.
There are people that have really hard family lives and they go no contact with their families because that's just what they had to resort to.
Yeah. Sometimes it is the best option. Sometimes it's the only option.
And so, I mean, I don't think our listeners are particularly judgmental or prejudiced people, but
oh no,
I would ask that everyone look to people experiencing this with empathy because no contact is a very big decision and a very big thing to execute. Oh, and then we kind of mentioned this near the beginning when we were talking about comparing, but to go back to the whole thing about pressure, because Asian parents are already so used to comparing their children or relatives or whatever, it's easy for that to become, I guess, a tool or a sub thing under trophy children because the whole thing about trophies, people like showing them off, people like showing off their medal, things like that. And in the situation where you're showing off your child, whether your child is there or not, you're talking about their accomplishments. So, oh, your kid goes to Yale, mine goes to Harvard, yours, excuse me, yours won silver for something. Well, mine won gold and platinum. All these things. So your kid takes 4 classes, my kid takes 6 classes.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And it feels the whole thing about trophy children because the whole point, I mean, you can say that this differs from parent to parent, but with tiger parents and the whole trophy child, what would you call the parent of a trophy child? You wouldn't call them a trophy parent, would you?
No, you wouldn't, because
you would call them, you know what, the parent, whatever.
Yeah, a bad parent.
I cannot disagree. Where was I? I was saying thing about comparison. They see the whole comparison thing as a way to kind of, I don't know, keep each other in check if you think about it, because you can check your footing if that's the right figure of speech. Because I don't know, I'm thinking of it in a way where you check what level you're on because it could be someone that you don't know, just like a new parent you met, and then you're kind of trying to feel out if your kid is better than them or not, they're not. Oh my gosh, I'm just thinking of, parent teacher associations or councils.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking of competitive parents in those. That's not why I started talking about that, but that was just a vision that popped in my head. Yeah, it's comparison, I think, appears a lot under trophy children just because the whole point is visuals and appearance.
Constantly want to know like where you're standing.
Have you ever experienced being a trophy child, Brianna? Did your parents ever for lack of better words, trophy child view?
Yes. um in my experience, it's I've only ever been that. I'm sure you can relate as only children.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier for parents to focus on the one child, um, because there is only one child they can focus all their energy onto. Um, so again, because of, like dance and stuff, there's been a lot of pressure through there. And I've always been hit with we spend so much money on you for this. You have to do well in this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's always like everything, every extracurricular, every academic achievement, whatever, has to be, especially when I was younger, not anymore, because I've stopped caring. But when I was younger, it always had to be reported so my mom could, like use that, whenever she talks to like relatives and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think now that I'm older, I can say that, it's not as bad as some people have it, because I know that my mom, she has good intentions sometimes. Um
I
like
like it sometimes.
uh-huh. Um yeah, like sometimes she truly just like wants to brag. Um
Mm-hmm.
which whatever, like in that case it's harmless. Yeah, sometimes she just wants to make like a Facebook post or whatever to make herself look better on Facebook, which
Mm-hmm.
I eh, I get. I don't agree with it at all. Makes me feel icky. Um,
Mm-hmm.
being the subject of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm personally like I don't like bragging about things. Um,
Yeah, I
like
totally relate to that.
yeah, like if something good happens or whatever, like I have good news, I'm not gonna go post about it or like tell a bunch of people. I'm only gonna tell like close friends. I'm not trying to make a whole show of it, you know.
Do you
Um,
think us feeling that way has something to do with
the way that
having
our
grown
parents
up
are.
this way?
Oh, I mean, personally, I know 1000% that's why. Like, I've made it a point growing up. Like, I've always felt disgusted with,
Mm-hmm.
being used as that like bragging point, or
Mm-hmm.
that like that the literal tool to make someone else look better. That someone else being like my mom. Um, but like because of that and because I grew up knowing that it makes me feel wrong, I've always been like, yeah, no way, I'm like never gonna open my mouth ever, which kind of sucks because sometimes like you do just want to talk about it and not feel guilty. um Even like just to friends, like sometimes talking about achievements is difficult because I always will feel like, oh, am I being my mother right now? Like, am I doing what I hate so much, which I'm not. um but yeah, it's definitely, I've definitely been used as a trophy child. I still am. Um, Also, just like within my family, I'm the youngest out of a certain generation.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always like even more expectation through there. Um, and like because of the way that like my parents presented me to the rest of my family had these expectations on me as well. Um, so yeah, it's difficult. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what about you? Like, what's your experience with being a trophy child or being
Being
treated like
trophied.
one? Yeah, being trophied.
I really like all the new vocabulary we're creating today. I 100% agree or identify with being a trophy child. I mean, I didn't have the classes aspect. They
Mhm,
never put me in math and things like that. I only did Chinese school,
mhm,
and that was largely due to the fact that we couldn't afford classes. And
mhm,
then also, I've mentioned this in the past, they don't own it, which is I would rather they do it and own it. Not the
uh-huh,
class thing, but the way they are. Because
uh-huh,
they are very they virtue signal in the sense that they will say that they don't care about my results, or they don't care about classes, because at the end of the day, blah 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 blah, just a bunch of stuff that they don't actually mean. And it's very much, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just inauthentic.
Yeah.
And it's very patting themselves on the back. We're very woke. And it's frustrating because they do all the things that trophy child parents do. They have always, I mean, I relate to what you're saying about being an only child. They have always used things that I do and accomplishments that I have as a bragging point. Now, they don't necessarily, because I was saying I'm not in any classes, so they don't put any active pressure on me to perform well. Partially because, I mean, in the least obnoxious way possible, I was just like a good student, whatever. And so that, and then because they were very passive, right? And so they wouldn't, I don't know, every day be like, oh, you have to do this or blah, blah. But if I were to not perform well, there would be a passive aggressive energy or something, and things like that. And some may argue that that's better, some may argue that that's worse. Whatever floats your boat. All I know is that I'm going to therapy at some point. And so that wasn't fun. And then another thing that bothered me is that they never reacted to anything that I did, any accomplishment that I had. But when it came time to tell someone about it, there was a, I don't know if I want to say emotion, but so say I told them that I don't know, got an award or something, they would be like, oh, okay, like, okay, or they'd be like, oh, nice, or whatever. But they wouldn't say it like that to other people. They would maybe say like, oh, Tiffany did this, blah blah. And then it would be this very proud moment or whatever. And it always felt very icky, like you were saying, just because, am I not a person? And it goes beyond academics or achievements as well, because the thing is, maybe this is a daughter thing, but because Asian parents and relatives, they also compare looks a lot, or make comments about looks and whatever. And it would bother me the way that my parents talked about my appearance, because it didn't feel like it was coming from and this is, I mean it when I say this, but I will acknowledge that what is about to come out of my mouth is gonna sound sad. It just didn't feel like it was coming from a loving parent way. It felt like they were saying something like, it felt like, because when, I don't know, when a parent says that their child is very pretty or very whatever, you may feel love, right? And the way that they would say it and the times that they would say it felt more as if like, look how nice and shiny my trophy is. And that's just how I feel and how I would feel.
It's a disgusting feeling.
Yeah, because you don't feel like a person. You
Yeah.
feel like
You're just a thing.
you're a trophy, and it would really suck. And I just didn't like it. It just makes you really uncomfortable. And then you were saying the whole thing about how you don't go about bragging about things to the public that happen to you, and I feel the same way. I only tell close friends if something about something cool, and for the most part, I would always find myself kind of shrinking, or I would never like sharing or talking about that kind of thing in a big public setting.
Yeah.
And I mean, Rihanna can attest to this. Not kind of. Rihanna can attest to this. Well, even when I do, okay, okay, I haven't even said what it is yet.
I know.
You want to finish this part then?
No. Continue, please.
Are you sure about that? Tell them
Yes.
what you think I'm gonna say. Okay.
No.
Oh, even when I do talk about things that happen to me that are good, that was not the most poetic way of wording it. I have a habit of downplaying it. And Rihanna, getting personal. I mean, this has always been personal, obviously. That's why we ask each other about our experiences. And I mean, when we ask each other about our experiences, there are things that we actually don't know about each other, and then there are things that we share that we both already knew. But you still ask for the sake of the audience, right? And so, yeah, I have a hard time. Not bragging. I mean, I don't do that, but
it's not even bragging. It's just like
talking
sharing.
about, I don't, and then I don't like bragging. And I know that they do say, I don't know who's they, but it is an important life skill to be able to advocate for your skills in the sense that, because I guess when it comes to work and things like that, you should be able to assert that you are good at something or that you're experiencing something because maybe you've got an award in it or you've done whatever for a long time. And so these are things we're working on. I am working on it, and I get a tiny bit better every day. Or maybe every day is an exaggeration, but I make an effort to tell Rihanna or other close friends about cool things that are happening instead of just keeping it to myself. And I very much appreciate how hyped up they are when I tell them.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Rihanna because she's here. If she was not here, she would not get a shout out. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Rihanna always gets a shout out. Rihanna is the reason why this podcast exists. Or else I would be sitting here by myself. Welcome back to Fresh on the Broach. It just doesn't work, right? Rihanna has to say her line.
Next episode, we'll switch lines and see what people think.
We could actually do that one day for an April Fool's kind of episode.
It would freak me out.
And then, but would we keep our name?
We say each other's names.
Wouldn't it be kind of, we're not on cam, like we're not a camera podcast at the moment, but if we were, or when we are, it would be funny if we did one where we switch, for one switch the role and then also like dress like the other person. Like, hi, I'm Tiffany, and I'm Rihanna.
I'm down. Let us know if you want to see that.
Comment down below if there is a comment section where you're streaming.
Having experienced being trophy children, and like growing up being that, and now almost we're not on the other side of this experience. I don't think we'll ever
we're not parents.
No. I mean, okay, not on the other side. I mean, like having grown up and not being children anymore. Not to say that we aren't treated like a trophy child anymore, but being older, understanding more things. There are ways to like cope with it. And it's hard. It's very difficult, and I acknowledge that. But I think a main one is just really don't compare yourself. And again, very difficult, especially within Asian culture, because comparison is just such a big part of it. And being a trophy child, you can't help but compare yourself to other kids. There's that you need to check where you stand. It's a vicious cycle, but that is a first step. Understand that you are your own person. You have likes and dislikes, and that is perfectly fine. Like you are your own person. It doesn't matter about anybody else.
I think part of the reason why comparison is such a big thing is because there's the reasoning or justification that you need to learn from other people and learn from people that are better than you. And that's not necessarily wrong, right? You learn from observation or from being taught from other people, but there's a line. And when it starts being super unhealthy and it's like you are constantly living in competition with the world, that's a lot. And it helps to, I don't know, if you happen to be in the room and you can't leave the room, to maybe tune it out so that you're not as what's the word, like present in the situation. I mean, that's not the best solution, but that is something that you can do. And then the more that you kind of distance yourself from this comparing, the easier it will be for you to not have it in your head as much.
That and it can be hard, but it is possible.
And then with you not being as present there, I don't know, maybe because this is something that I do where I will tune it out if I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything. Because I mean, some people put headphones on. If I did that, I would be yelled at and potentially threatened. But if you can put headphones on, you could try that. Because then you're fully blocking it out.
Also, if you are younger listening to this, I think it's easy to think like, like I'm never escaping this, whatever. It does get better as you get older. Just not necessarily, your parents like let off a little bit, like some people fully don't. But again, like, as you get older, you start to understand, like, there's nuance to the situation. You like it's difficult. And you can, once you get older, you'll start to mature and realize like, hey, there's reasons. It doesn't make anything better, but like you start to understand maybe why your parents act the way that they do.
And it's okay if you don't understand.
For sure. Like we were talking, no contact, that's an option, but at the same time, like sometimes there is room for understanding for why your parents
Mm-hmm.
are the way that they are, and like some
Mm-hmm.
parents, like they do deserve that. um some parents don't, and that's also perfectly fine. um but yeah, like you will come to realize why things are the way that they are, and it's a very like internal healing process. um but it'll happen.
Also, to add on to what you're saying about getting older, as you maybe go into college and university or start working, you spend more time out of the house and away from home,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you get a little bit more autonomy. And
Mm-hmm.
if, because one thing that I would do is because I had and have really strict parents, I would treat my work time and my school time as my quote unquote going out time. And I don't mean
Mm-hmm.
that as in I'm skipping class to go shopping. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I treat that as my free time mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when you can, I don't know, maybe like be yourself, or even if you don't need to either, be yourself outside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
It's your time to not have to constantly be under that cloud of
Mm-hmm.
pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And the more time that you're able to spend away, the more you can kind of develop as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Like
I think there's, sorry, yeah.
no, no, you keep going.
Because I think it helped me find some peace
Mm-hmm.
studying in the library or something,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to studying at home. Because I don't feel like I'm being surveilled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you were saying, spend like as you get older, you spend more time out of the house. um you realize like there's more to the world, there's more to
Mm-hmm.
what makes a person, and you meet more people, you see like different how differently people were raised, or just how different people are, and
Mm-hmm.
you were exposed to more. You realize that like what you are experiencing isn't all everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's more to the world, and
Mm-hmm.
it's comforting, especially if you're in a situation like this.
Mm-hmm.
There's
I can.
more like that people can value you for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can 100% relate to how when you're younger, sometimes things can feel very dark and hopeless
Hmm.
because you think you're stuck at home
Uh-huh.
forever. And it does feel like forever sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Especially if that's all you were like raised to know, like,
Mm-hmm.
being with your parents, even Asian culture, like staying at home until you're married pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
It's overwhelming and stressful and
Mm-hmm.
like suffocating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also lots of like support systems that you can find, whether that be through like friends, family members that you trust,
Mm-hmm.
and online, even just, like listening to something like this, realizing it's not just you, or like support groups online, just different forums, stuff like that, or like therapy if that's possible for you.
Mm-hmm.
All super good options.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes at your school or in maybe a local community organization, they might have free resources that you can use. I mean, there's always resources online.
Mm-hmm.
We will link to some that we can find,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely if you're able to ask someone at school or look it up,
Mm-hmm.
because there's probably a link. So this way you don't necessarily have to talk, like let people know that you don't are not comfortable with them knowing
Yeah.
Now that we've covered pretty much everything that we want to talk about under this topic, I think this is a good place for us to end.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everyone for tuning in today. We hope that this was a meaningful discussion for you to listen to. And we hope that it, depending on who you are, we hope that maybe it comforted you, or maybe you learned about something that you didn't know exists. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you didn't know what trophy children were, or maybe you did know what they were, but you didn't really know what to call it. And the thing is, it's not the end all be all name, because when we were researching for this episode, when you look at trophy child, sometimes not sometimes stuff that is irrelevant comes up, or
Mm-hmm.
people don't always use trophy child to describe what this is,
Uh-huh.
just because trophy child is a lot of things, and it's just something. I mean, I know it as trophy child, but I don't think someone taught me that. I think I just call it that, and I've
Yeah,
heard
same.
some other people call it that, but it's
Same.
not. As far as I know, and as far as we have tried to research, we don't think it's a medical term.
Yeah. It's not like an official
Mhm.
word used
If you
by.
know otherwise, let us know, and we
Mm-hmm.
will correct that in the description. But that
Mm-hmm.
is as far as we are aware.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as usual, this is the part where I tell you things that you can tell us.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, if you feel comfortable, let us know your experience being a trophy child. Can you relate to the things that we were saying? Do you know someone that grew up this way? And now we're at the part where I tell everyone what to comment if they feel like it. And then if you don't want to comment anything, feel free to ignore this part. But as always, we're happy to hear your experience if you're comfortable sharing, and if you have any being a trophy child, maybe you know someone that's a trophy child. Are you a parent, or you're considering becoming a parent, and you're perhaps reconciling with growing up as a trophy child? Because I mean, people always talk about breaking the cycle, and we all have the opportunity to break the cycle should we want to start a family. And so if you have any thoughts about that, anything you're doing, things you're reflecting on, we're definitely happy to hear. We always love it when you guys share your thoughts and experience, your opinions, because this is our podcast. It's your podcast as much as it is ours.
If you guys like this episode and want to stay connected with us, check out our website in the description. It contains links to our streaming platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and more. Follow us for more behind-the-scenes content, announcements, and other random things we decide to put on there.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Asian Pacific Heritage Month.
Yay.